The HOA notice is still wet when Daniel pulls it from the door. By noon, a white envelope whispers 6 words. We know who you used to be. At 3, Karen's fingers find a gun, and Naomi's chalk goes silent. A silver sedan idles, camera up, like it has waited for this scene all week. The siren dies at the corner, and the street forgets how to breathe. Daniel lifts his hands and sees the trap. This isn't about chalk. It's a script with his name on it. What happened next shocked everyone and set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Stay with me. This is a story you need to hear. Before we start the story, comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you find this story impactful, don't forget to subscribe for more. I woke from a desert that wasn't there. In the dream, the sky was white and the air was full of heat and grit. Someone called my name, but the wind swallowed it. A door stood far away, the kind you see in a cheap hotel, but it had no walls around it. I ran for it. I ran and felt the old weight on my back and the old burn in my chest. When I reached for the handle, it turned on its own. The door cracked open, and inside was nothing, only a cold smell like metal and rain. Then the sprinklers in the yard clicked on, and the hiss of water pulled me out of the dream. It was still gray outside. Early morning in a quiet cul-de-sac, the kind of quiet that makes small sounds feel big. The fridge hummed. A branch scraped the eaves. Somewhere down the street, a dog shook its collar. A quick jingle, and then silence. I sat up and rubbed my face, breathing slowly until the dream let go. My hands felt like I had climbed a rope. Old habits. Old nerves. I tell myself I am home. I tell myself the ground under me is safe. It is a trick that works most days. I walked through the small house. Boxes still lived against the walls like lazy animals that didn't want to move. A few frames leaned on the mantel. In one, Naomi was 5, on a swing, all teeth and wind. In another, she was a little older, sitting on a blanket, her hair in 2 neat braids, her eyes on the camera like she had already decided the world and she would make peace on her terms. There was a photo of Grace tucked behind them, half hidden. I didn't touch it. Sometimes it feels like if I move that picture, the past will pour out and fill the room. The kettle took its time, so I stepped onto the porch and let the air wake me. The sky was as pale as the inside of a shell. The houses matched each other like cousins, same roofs, same trim, same cheerful mailboxes with faded flags. The grass was wet. The smell was clean and sharp and sweet, as if someone had washed the whole morning and hung it up to dry. A small paper was clipped to the front door, tucked under the brass knocker I haven't polished yet. Notice of violation, it said in a tidy blue font. I ran my thumb over the edge of the paper. Front yard brown patches. Unapproved garden stones. Sidewalk chalk art must be removed. Hope you will correct these issues promptly. It was signed with a flourish that looked like the swoop of a bird. Under that, Oak Meadow Homeowners Association. Chair, Karen Whitfield. I folded the paper and slid it into my pocket. The chalk art belonged to Naomi. Stars and flowers and a girl with a cape who looked like a secret version of herself. I felt the heat rise in my throat, then I let it settle. I moved back through the house and poured the tea, breathing in the steam. It smelled like mint and something softer, like the memory of sweetness. I used to drink coffee that could melt metal. Now I make quiet tea. It feels like a promise I make to myself each morning. Gentle first, then the rest. On Maple Lane, the morning moved like a slow tide. Curtains opened one by one. Sprinklers made thin rainbows over trimmed lawns. A man in a gray hoodie jogged past with a face that did not look left or right. A boy on a scooter stopped at the corner and waited for nobody. At the end of the cul-de-sac, a woman in a wide hat measured her hedges with a small ruler and marked something on a clipboard. I leaned in the doorway and watched the light collect on the faces of the houses. The light here is different. It doesn't bounce off metal and glass and dust. It sits on the roofs like warm water. It fills the space behind my ribs and tries to make a home there. I drink my tea slowly, because rushing is not a skill I want anymore. Naomi's door was half open. I knocked and went in. She was sprawled sideways across the bed, one arm over her face, one leg hanging off, a book open on her chest. The book had a woman running under a storm on the cover. I took the book and put it on the nightstand and touched the top of her hair. "Morning, kid," I said. She made a sound that was not a word and rolled over. Her hair was braided last night. She had tried to do it herself, and the parts weren't even. She and I are both learning patience. "5 more minutes," she said. "You always say that. Sometimes it works." "Breakfast is almost ready," I said. "Tea and eggs." "Tea is not breakfast. Eggs are breakfast." She cracked one eye open. "Did you sleep?" "A little." "Dreams?" "Just one," I said. "It left." She sat up and hugged her pillow. "Good," she said. "You should draw the dream." "I don't draw." "You should try. I'll leave that to you." She grinned and threw off the covers. She's 12 and tall for her age, all elbows and ideas, the kind of kid who reads the endings of books because she wants to know if the people she likes are safe. She got up and stretched and looked out the window. "Our chalk got rained on," she said. "There was a notice," I said, and kept my voice even. "We'll clean it up later." Her mouth tilted. "Why? It's chalk. It goes away. Some people like rules." "Do they like color?" "Maybe not on the sidewalk." She made a face and laughed like she was trying not to laugh. Her laugh is a sunrise after a storm. "Okay," she said. "I'll draw in the driveway. That's private, right?" "We'll see," I said, and she rolled her eyes like a kid who knows her father is stubborn and plans to outlast him anyway. We ate at the kitchen counter, leaning on our elbows, sharing the last piece of toast. Naomi told me about a science project she wanted to do with baking soda and vinegar and plastic tubes that would turn the backyard into a volcano that breathes. She used her hands to draw her plan in the air, and toast crumbs fell from her fingers. I listened and nodded and tried to keep my brain in the room. Sometimes it tries to go back to places it doesn't belong. When that happens, I name everything I can see. Toast, blue mug, yellow window, Naomi's braid, her socks, the floor wooden and clean except for one crumb, the sound of the fan overhead, the smell of mint. This is my life, I say to the part of me that wants to leave. This is where we stay. When Naomi went to brush her teeth, I took the notice from my pocket and read it again. I thought of knocking on the door of the HOA chair and asking what the problem was with stars and capes. I pictured a talk that would be simple and kind. But kindness does not always live in the same house as rules. The woman in the yard across the street, Karen, had taken off her hat. She was neat in a pale blouse and dark pants, a small silver cross at her neck, hair pulled back so tight it made her look permanent. She watched 2 young boys ride their bikes in little loops like bees, then spoke to a man who had come out with a trash bag. Her face was calm. Her calm made me feel like I was walking through a room where the furniture moved by itself when I wasn't looking. Naomi came back and set her cup in the sink. "Can I go out?" she asked. "Stay in the yard. Stay where I can see you," I said. "I know," she said, because we had gone over this and over it again. Not because of the yard, because of the world. She slid on her sneakers and ran to the driveway with her chalk bucket. She knelt and began to draw, her whole body leaning into it. The pink chalk made a soft sound against the concrete, like a zipper. The sun climbed a little higher. A robin landed on the fence and watched her, tilting its head. From a doorway, I could see my own reflection faint in the glass. Broad shoulders I still carry like armor, a scar that peeks out when I shave too fast, eyes that still measure more than they need to. I keep a list of things to do and cross off the ones that don't matter anymore. Learn the names of the neighbors. Fix the door that sticks. Collect the mail every day, not once a week. Learn to sleep. There was another piece of mail tucked under the mat, thin and white, no return address. I didn't open it. Something about it made the air feel colder. Instead, I tucked it inside the hallway drawer, next to the spare keys and the batteries for the smoke alarm. Later. Not now. Today, I want to begin in the light. Naomi drew a figure in a cape again. This time, the figure had a dog. She looked up and caught me watching and made the figure wave at me. I waved back. Across the street, Karen lifted her face and squinted, measuring something on the sidewalk with her eyes. Her gaze moved from the chalk to Naomi to me. She didn't smile. I nodded anyway, because I wanted my daughter to see me hold my corner of the street with calm hands. On Maple Lane, people learn from each other by their small routines. The man with the gray hoodie will nod every third morning. The mail comes late on Wednesdays. The couple in the blue house like to argue with the windows open, not because they are cruel, but because they love the sound of their own names. The woman with the clipboard does not wave unless you wave first, and even then, it is only a shadow of a wave, like a string pulled up and let go. I stepped down onto the porch and let the sun touch my face. The light felt warm and steady. It felt like a promise. I stood there and watched my daughter fill our driveway with color. I pressed my tongue to the back of my teeth, a habit I picked up somewhere that wasn't here. I took another breath and tasted mint, and something I didn't want to name. The morning trembled, just a little, like a coin on its edge, not yet fallen to either side. By 9, the street had shaken itself awake. A delivery truck hissed to a stop at the corner and then rolled away. A screen door banged somewhere far off. I walked down to the mailbox with my mug in my hand and the sun on my shoulders like a slow hand that meant well. "Morning, Daniel," Paul called from across the street. He had a big black dog on a leash, the kind with kind eyes and a clumsy tail. Paul lifted 2 fingers in a salute and smiled like people do when they are still deciding how much of themselves to show you. "Morning," I said. The dog sniffed the air and sneezed. Naomi looked up from her drawing and waved. Paul waved back. The dog thumped its tail so hard it hit Paul's knee. In the box, there was junk mail, a thin church newsletter, a local coupon packet, and the white envelope from under the mat, like it had crawled there by itself and waited for a better time. No return address. No stamp. Just my name, typed neat. The paper felt a little too smooth, the way new tile feels under your foot when you are used to old wood. I turned it over. The flap wasn't sealed. Inside was a single strip of paper the color of milk. 6 words, centered, in that same careful font. "We know who you used to be." I held it for a second and let the word sit. The sun went behind a cloud and the street lost a shade of its color. I folded the paper once, twice, until it was small enough to fit between 2 fingers. I slid it into my pocket. Mint rose in my mouth and turned bitter. From the driveway, chalk made a soft sound. Naomi shaded the cape on her figure with a purple that looked like a bruise of sky. The bucket sat beside her. She had arranged the sticks in a rainbow, then knocked them over by accident, then left them in a small storm. It looked like a choice she made. She is good at making messes into art. Across the street, Karen put her clipboard under her arm and stepped off her lawn. The silver cross at her neck caught the light. She moved with a certain kind of aim, the way people do when they think their feet make the rules for the ground. She did not look right or left. Her eyes were on the chalk. I took a breath and walked back up the path. "Naomi," I said, keeping my voice level. "Hold up a second." She sat back on her heels and tilted her face to me. She saw Karen, then looked down and carefully placed the chalk on the pavement like it was a living thing she did not want to scare. Karen stopped at the edge of our driveway. She didn't step onto the concrete. She stood with her toes just touching the line, like it was a fence only she could see. "Good morning," I said. "Mister," she said, as if the name might change if she waited. "Daniel," I said. "Daniel and Naomi." I saw her eyes flick to the framed number by our door, as if it had something to add. "This is the common walkway," she said, voice smooth, as if she had said that same sentence many times and expected it to behave. She pointed with the clipboard to the lip where our driveway met the sidewalk. "We ask that children keep their art on their own property. The rain runoff is not good for the finish, and we have had complaints." "It's chalk," Naomi said quietly. "It washes away." Karen looked at her as if she had spoken out of turn in church. "Sweetheart," she said, "rules exist for a reason." "I understand," I said. "We were planning to rinse it." "You received a notice," Karen said. "I did," I said. "Then you understand," she said again, as if understanding and agreement were the same thing. There was a second of quiet. A bird called from the oak by the curb, a sharp two-note sound, like a question that did not want an answer. "Naomi," I said, "can you lift your bucket and move it back a bit for me?" She reached without standing, the way kids do when they want to prove they are listening. The bucket scraped the concrete. 2 sticks rolled toward the sidewalk and bumped the line and stopped. Karen's mouth tightened. She shifted her weight, and her bag pressed against her hip. It was a tidy bag, cream-colored, the kind that looks like it carries neat things. Her hand slid into it like a habit. "I would prefer if she did not reach for anything near the sidewalk," Karen said. The smoothness in her voice had a burr in it now. "Please tell her to stop." "She's moving her chalk back." "Please tell her to stop," Karen said again, but she wasn't talking to me now. Her eyes had narrowed and her breath had changed. She touched something near her ear, a small, almost nothing that could have been a stray hair. The angle of her head said she was listening to a voice I could not hear. On Maple Lane, small things become big when the street is quiet. The click of a latch. The catch in a breath. A dog's collar from 3 houses over. On Maple Lane, people watch each other with love and with worry and with the kind of hunger that makes you think you are doing a good thing when you are only feeding your own fear. "Naomi," I said, keeping my eyes on Karen. "Set the bucket down and stand up nice and slow." Naomi froze. She looked at me, then at Karen, then at the line of the sidewalk that seemed to have grown teeth. "Sir," Karen said, and her hand came out of the bag. There was a small black shape in it that did not belong to a morning. She held it low, but the low didn't help. The air around it went thin. Paul stopped walking. The dog stopped with him and sat, like someone had told it to in another language. Across the way, Rebecca from the blue house came out with a watering can and made a sound in her throat that stuttered like a broken radio. The boys on their bikes at the corner slowed, their circles pulling tight. "Karen," I said softly, "please put that away." "I am in fear for my safety," she said too fast, like someone reading a line they had practiced. Her eyes flicked to the side again. Her hand brushed across at her neck, and for a second her lips moved as if she was saying a small prayer or a smaller script. "There have been incidents. We have had break-ins. We have had graffiti. You need to keep your child away from the walkway." Naomi's breath shortened. I could see her counting without moving her lips. We practiced counting. We had practiced keeping her hands where people could see them. She is 12. She knows how to make herself smaller when strangers look at her and see someone older and bigger and something else besides. "Look at me," I told Naomi. "Eyes here." Her eyes came to me at once. She is good at that. I held them like I was holding her hand. "Put your hands up where she can see them," I said. "Slow. Good. Now stand. Good. Come to me. Slow." Karen's chin lifted. "Stop where you are," she snapped, and the words snapped in the morning. All the soft broke and the edges showed. "Do not come closer to me." "She's coming to me," I said, and kept my palms open, empty, where Karen could see them. "She will stay on this side of the driveway. We are not a threat to you." Karen's eyes moved to me and stayed there. It felt like stepping into cold water, that look. There was fear in it, but there was something else, too, something hard as a key. She listened again to the voice only she could hear. From 2 houses down, a car door shut. I saw a silver sedan idling in the shade with its windows up. A man sat in the driver's seat with his hands on the wheel at 10 and 2 like a picture. I couldn't see his face well. He didn't turn his head. He was on his phone. He didn't look like a neighbor I knew. He didn't look like a delivery man or a repairman or a friend. He looked like someone waiting to see which way a coin would fall. Paul found his voice. "Karen," he said, loud enough to carry. "It's Chalk. It's a child." His voice broke on the last word as if it had tried to jump a fence and caught its shirt. "Call the police," someone else said. "Thomas from the yellow house. Maybe. Just call and let them sort it out." He sounded like a man trying to put a fire out with a towel. "I am already on the line," Karen said, and it wasn't to us. It was to whoever lived inside the small space near her ear. "Yes," she said to no one we could see. "Yes, I feel threatened. Yes, the father is agitated. He is." She looked at my hands, my shoulders, my face like she was reading a report I hadn't written yet. "He is refusing to comply." I stood still as a tree. There was a buzzing in my hands, a hum of old wires that wake up when they smell smoke even if there is no fire. I kept my voice calm. "Naomi," I said, "take one step. Good girl. One more. That's it. Stop there." She was close enough now that if I reached I could have touched her shoulders, but I didn't reach. I kept my hands up. The bucket tipped and a stick of chalk rolled and rolled until it bumped my shoe and stopped. It left a white mark on the leather that looked like a quiet moon. Karen's finger twitched. Her mouth softened for a second. And in that second I saw a different version of her. The one who held babies at church and counted hymn books and made casseroles when people were sad. Then the second closed and the harder version came back. "I don't want trouble," she said. "We are a peaceful community." "Then be peaceful," I said. The silver sedan's engine changed pitch, a small sound that felt like it moved the air around us. The man did not look up. I had the sudden simple thought that he could smell the same mint I could, and that he didn't like the taste either. Somewhere far away at first, and then closer, there was the soft beginning of a siren. It made a line in the air and drew it toward us. Naomi's shoulder brushed my leg. I could feel her shaking. I kept my eyes on Karen. "Please," Rebecca said, her voice thin with tears. "Please, Karen." "I have to keep the rules," Karen said. It sounded like she needed the sentence to hold her up. "Rules don't need guns," I said. I kept my face open. I thought of the letter in my pocket. "We know who you used to be." The words sat there like a smooth stone. Someone had dropped it into my day and waited for the ripples. Karen's eyes flicked just once to the silver car. It was not much, a fly landing, brushing off. But it was the kind of not much that tells a different story. She wasn't alone in this, not entirely. Someone had talked to her. Someone had told her what to look for, how to hold her mouth, which words to say to a person on a line. In the house behind us, the kettle clicked in the empty kitchen, forgotten on warm metal. In the oak tree, the bird leapt and the branch shook, and a small flood of green light fell on the driveway and broke. "Naomi," I said, and I could feel the old ground tilt under my feet, asking me to stand the way I used to stand. "We're going to wait here. We will breathe and we will wait." She nodded once, quick. She kept her hands up. Her lips moved with the count again, the numbers like beads between her fingers. The siren came closer and then cut off, like a breath held at the door. Tires crushed gravel at the far end of the cul-de-sac. A sheriff's cruiser slid into view, took the corner like it knew our street by heart, and stopped behind the silver sedan. The deputy who stepped out was young, with a face that had not yet decided what it would be when it was older. His name tag caught the sun, Ethan Price. He looked at Karen first, then at me, then at Naomi, then at Karen again. Karen didn't lower her hand. She didn't raise it either. She was stuck in a place between two bad choices. Deputy Price lifted his palms a little, copying me without meaning to. "Ma'am," he called, careful, wearing the word like armor. "Let's all slow down. On Maple Lane, later, people would tell the story in different ways. Some would say the girl reached for something fast. Some would say the woman said a word she would never say in church. Some would say the father was calm as a lake. Some would say he looked like a storm was waiting behind his teeth. All of them would be trying to make it make sense, and it would not make sense because it had never been about chalk. The deputy's radio hissed. The silver sedan's engine went quiet. The man inside finally lifted his head. I still couldn't see his face, but I saw the clean white line of a scar under his ear when the light hit him right. It was small, a little crescent like a cut moon. The hair at his temple was too neat, as if he had decided ahead of time not to sweat. "I'm going to put this away," Karen said, but her voice was thin now, and she didn't move. "I am," she said again, and then she blinked hard, and something like shame crossed her face, quick and hot as a match. "Please," Deputy Price said. "Everyone is safe." Safe is a word that can mean one thing from one mouth and another thing from another. I did not feel safe. Naomi did not feel safe. Karen did not look safe from herself. The man in the car did not look like he cared about any version of the word. The silver cross at Karen's neck trembled, a little bright thing on a thin chain, trying to decide which way to fall. I thought of the door in my dream, the cold air behind it, the smell of metal and rain. I thought of a letter in my pocket and the voice in Karen's ear and the way her eyes had gone past me to someone I could not see. I thought of the way fear can be borrowed and sold and passed around until nobody remembers who owned it first. The deputy took one step forward, slow, like you move toward a wild animal you don't want to startle. The siren stayed silent. The street held its breath. Even the dog did not move. "Ma'am," he said again, and the words sounded softer now. "Look at the child. Look at her hands. We're going to make this right." Karen blinked. A tear made a quick run down her cheek and left a clean line on her skin. She looked at Naomi as if she was seeing a person for the first time and not a rule. The shape in her hand lowered an inch. The inch felt like a mile. "Thank you," I said. The man in the silver car lifted his phone and took a picture. I didn't hear the click, but I felt it in my teeth. He put the phone down. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He was a mark on a page that meant more later. "We know who you used to be," the paper in my pocket said. I looked at the faces around me, my daughter, the woman with the cross, the deputy with the new badge, the man behind glass. And I understood, in a small bright flash, that this morning had been waiting for us before we ever set foot on this street. It had been made. It had been fed. It had been given to us with a pretty bow of rules and a quieter knot of something else. Naomi's fingers brushed my elbow. Her touch was light as the first drops of rain. I stood very still and waited to see what the next inch would bring. The shape in Karen's hand dropped another inch. Then another. Then it disappeared back into the tidy cream bag like a bad thought pushed down. She held the strap with both hands, white-knuckled, breathing through her nose the way people do when they're trying not to cry in public. Deputy Price exhaled. The sound was small and tired. "Thank you," he said again. He looked at Naomi, then at me. "Is everyone okay here?" "Yes," I said. "We're okay." It was half true. My heart was a drum that remembered older songs. Naomi's hands were still in the air. I touched her elbow. "You can lower them now," I said. "You did perfect." She dropped them slow, careful, like they weighed more than they should. She leaned into me for a second, a quick press of shoulder and ribs, and then she stood straight again. She is proud. She does not like strangers to see her hide. Across the street, Paul took a step forward, and then another, the way a man approaches a skittish animal. "Karen," he said softly, almost kind. "You all right?" "I followed the protocol," she said, but she wasn't looking at him. She was looking somewhere in the middle distance where the road curves and the eye can rest on nothing. "I followed the protocol." The silver sedan's engine hummed again. It pulled away slowly, then faster at the corner, and was gone. The air felt lighter when it left, like a room when someone stops whispering. I watched the car go. Old habit. I let my eyes fall to the plate without moving my head. I said the numbers in my mind like a prayer. I said them again and then put them in the same drawer as the letter in my pocket. On Maple Lane, after the big sound leaves, the small sounds come back. A sprinkler ticked. A bee worried a white flower by the stoop. Someone dropped a spoon in a sink. Deputy Price tipped his chin toward me. "Sir, if we can talk for a minute." "Of course," I said. He walked Karen to the curb with a slow step, spoke to her low, and made a small motion with his hands, as if he was helping her fold herself back into a shape that fit. She nodded too fast. She touched the cross at her neck. She did not look at Naomi. Then she turned and went toward her house with her back straight and her mouth set. Her front door opened and closed with a soft, polite click, as if the house didn't want to make noise about anything that had just happened. Paul came to the edge of our lawn. The dog walked beside him and sat without being told. The dog looked at Naomi and thumped its tail on the grass like a message in code. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked Naomi, and he kept his voice light. "You scared my dog. He doesn't like rude mornings." Naomi smiled without teeth. "I'm okay," she said. "You did everything right," Paul said. "Everything. You hear me." He glanced at me and then looked away, as if he knew that praise could be a delicate thing in a moment like this. "If you want, you and Baxter can draw together later. He's very good with circles. All he draws is circles." The dog sneezed like he agreed. "Maybe," Naomi said. She bent and picked up the chalk bucket and held it like a small suitcase. "We'll see." Deputy Price returned. He was young in the way hands are young, with a small nick on one knuckle that looked fresh. He kept his hat under his arm. His hair was too neat. He had been trying hard for a long time this morning. "Sir, I'm Ethan," he said. "I'm sorry you and your daughter went through that." "Daniel," I said. "This is Naomi." He nodded to her. "Naomi, I'm glad you're safe." The word came out stiff, but he meant it. He looked at me. We got a call. Then another call. Same thing. Same words. Aggressive subject. Threat to property. Possible concealment. It was very scripted. He picked at the edge of his hat brim with one finger. "I'm not saying this to excuse anything. I am telling you what got put in my ear." "You did all right," I said. "You looked at the real things." He glanced toward Karen's house, and then at the end of the street. "Do you know the man who was in the sedan?" "No," I said. "Do you?" He made a face that wasn't a face. "Not well. I saw him at the station, handing out flyers. He's with some neighborhood safety group. They use a different name every month. Sentinel. Harbor Watch. Guardian Partners. They like clipboards. They like talking to HOAs. They like fear." He said the last word like it didn't taste good. "He gave Karen script," I said. "I can't say that," Ethan said. But he didn't look surprised by anything that happened. And he left the second I pulled in. "That tells me something." "It tells me something too," I said. He looked at Naomi again. He seemed to want to say more. He didn't. He gave us a card instead, white and thin. "If you need me," he said. "If anyone gives you trouble, call me directly. I can't promise the world, but I can show up." "Thank you," I said. I put the card in my pocket with the letter. My pocket felt heavy, like it was full of small stones. Inside the house, the kettle had gone cold. The tea tasted like a clock that had stopped and was trying to tick anyway. Naomi leaned on the counter with the chalk bucket in front of her like a shield. "You did everything right," I said. "I know," she said, but she had to say it to make it true. "Dad." "Yes." "Are we the problem?" "No," I said. "Am I the problem?" "No," I said again, and the word felt like a rope I threw to her, and to myself. She looked down at her hands. They had chalk dust on them, pink and purple, a bruise of a rainbow. She rubbed her fingers together and watched the powder fall. She looked at me like I wasn't a kid. "You are a kid," I said. "You are my kid." "And you," she started, Then stopped, then tried again. She looked at you like you were something else. I thought of the letter. We know who you used to be. I looked at my daughter, who wants to build a volcano in the backyard and feed it vinegar and watch it breathe. I used to be a different kind of man, I said. Not bad. Not good. Just made for different rooms than this one. I touched the counter. This is my room now. This is our room. Okay, she said. She let out a breath, like a little whistle. I don't like her. I don't either, I said, and we both smiled, a small thing we could share. On Maple Lane, the stories people tell about each other are quilts. Someone makes one square. Someone else stitches it to theirs. The patterns don't always match, but the whole keeps somebody warm. In the blue house, Rebecca put her watering can down and cried into her hands for exactly 10 seconds, then wiped her face and crossed the street with a plate of cookies she had chosen not to bake, had simply put on a plate from a package. She rang our bell. I know you don't eat sugar, she said, guessing wrong with hope. Take them anyway. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Her voice shook and settled. I will talk to her. I will. She listens to me sometimes. Thank you, I said. Her brother was robbed last year, she said, then looked ashamed. That doesn't make today okay. Nothing makes today okay. I'm only trying to tell the piece of the picture I know. She changed after that. Then a man came with a binder and told all of us what to watch for. He used numbers. He used statistics. He said, you must act fast. You must act with confidence. You are the thin line between order and decay. Rebecca's mouth twisted. Since then, Karen thinks her clipboard is a badge. We saw the man, I said. His name is Caleb, she said. Caleb Ward. He stands too straight. He knows too much about everybody. He came to my door one time and told me my husband had a speeding ticket 2 towns over like it mattered to me. She swallowed. He knows who you are. He told Karen things he should not know. I heard him. What did he tell her? I asked. Rebecca looked at Naomi and then at me, weighing her words like a handful of nails. That you have training. That you know how to hurt people with your hands. That you are dangerous if cornered. He said it like a warning and like a dare. Who would tell him that? I asked, but I could feel an answer moving around inside the question like a fish. Rebecca lifted one shoulder, small and sad. People talk. People drink wine on Friday nights. People want to impress the man with the binder. She looked towards Paul's house. Then she looked at her feet. People say things they don't mean to say to anyone but a friend. After she left, I stood by the sink and watched the small white line of chalk on my shoe. It looked like something a tailor would make before he cut. Do we have to move? Naomi asked from the doorway. No, I said. We do not run. You taught me to run. I taught you to choose when. She nodded, thinking that over. She has always liked rules when they belong to her. Later, when Naomi was drawing again on the back patio where the sun made a square of warm gold, Paul came by with Baxter. He stood at the fence and leaned on it like a man who didn't know if he was coming in or staying out. You got a minute? He asked. Sure, I said. He scratched the dog's ear. I messed up, he said. I told Caleb you were military. I didn't mean to make it a thing. It came out of my mouth. He asked me who you were. He's good at asking. I wanted him to know you weren't a problem. I thought it would help. Now I see I handed him a match. I nodded once. I let the quiet sit. He took the quiet like a slap and flinched. I'm sorry, he said. For my big mouth. For not knowing better. For thinking somebody like that could use anything for good. You're telling me now, I said. That helps. He looked relieved in a small way that hurt to watch. He told me he could make fines go away if I helped him. We got hit bad last year. Hannah lost work. The roof needed fixing. They fined us for the fence, the color of the shed door, the bird feeder being 2 inches too low. He said he could fix it. I wanted him to fix it. I let him know too much. That's on me. He swallowed. If you want me to tell him I lied, I will. I'll say I made it up. Don't lie more, I said. Just don't talk to him about me again. Done, he said. He put a hand flat on the fence, a promise. And Daniel, if you need anything, you come to me. I know I don't look like much, but I can stand in a yard and be counted. I know, I said. When he was gone, I sat on the back step and watched Naomi draw a spiral that became a galaxy. She made stars with the chalk, then smudged them with her thumb into light. She does not believe in empty space. She fills it. The back gate was unlocked. I noticed small things. I locked it last night. The latch showed a little shine where the paint had rubbed, new. I walked to it and looked at the ground. There was a footprint on the dirt by the hinge. The tread was straight lines and squares, cheap boots or sensible shoes. It could have been a yard worker. It could have been a friend. It could have been a man in a silver car making sure the gate swings easy when he wants to push it. I locked it and then checked it twice, the way I check a sleeping child. I looked up at the fence line and saw a robin watching me with one eye, head tilted like a judge. Inside her own house, Karen stood at her sink with her hands under cold water and let the cold tell her what to feel. She had not cried. She would not cry. She would make a casserole later, because that made the world hold still for 45 minutes while it baked. The phone on the counter buzzed. You did well, the text said. Stand firm. Do not let them bully you. We will handle the narrative. C. She stared at the letter C for a long time. She did not like being told she had done well. She liked being sure. Across from the sink, on a small peg, hung her father's old measuring tape. He used to measure everything in their house when she was a girl, table legs, curtains, books, until the house looked like a list. When he got mad, he would unfold the tape and snap it shut, and she would jump every time. She wiped her hands and put the phone face down. She told herself she had kept the rules. She told herself Naomi had been near the common walkway. She told herself she had felt fear and she had named it, and that was correct. Somewhere inside, a softer voice said, You pointed a gun at a child. She placed a dish on the counter like it was a fragile thing. She did not let it break. She put on a cardigan because her mother always said ladies put on a sweater when they were uncertain. The doorbell rang. She jumped and then smoothed the cardigan and opened the door to Rebecca. Are you proud of yourself? Rebecca asked, blunt as a slap. I did what I had to do. No, Rebecca said. You did what a stranger told you to do. And you scared a little girl so badly she will remember your face when she is old. And you put a stain on this street we cannot scrub off with bleach. Karen's chin lifted. I have to protect property values. From chalk? Rebecca asked, and her laugh had no joy in it. From a father and a child? Caleb is not helping us. He is making us hard, and we were soft once. We were good soft. He said, Karen started. I know what he said, Rebecca cut in. He says the same thing to everyone. He makes you feel like the hero of a small movie. Then he leaves before the credits. Don't do this again, Karen. Not on this street. Not to them. Karen closed the door very gently. She put her hand on the cross at her neck and felt the chain. She did not pray. She did not know what to ask. When the sun moved to the other side of the houses and drew long shadows over the lawn, Deputy Price came back on foot. No car. Just a man with a badge and hands in his pockets. He stood at the edge of our yard and gave me a look that asked permission. I nodded. I should file a report, he said. I should put words in the right boxes. That's my job. But I wanted to talk first, man to man. Off the record. Okay. He looked at the chalk galaxies on the patio. My little sister used to draw like that, he said. Now she teaches second grade in a district that doesn't pay her enough to buy chalk. Funny. He rubbed his thumb against his palm, thinking. If the guy in the sedan comes back, Caleb, call me. Don't engage. He likes to talk men into proving something. That's when things go sideways. I know his type, I said. He studied my face. He had cop eyes and kid eyes both. Do I need to know anything about you that will change how I handle this? No, I said. You need to know that I will not start a fight on your street. You need to know that I will finish one if it comes to my door. He nodded once. Fair, he said. He looked at Naomi through the screen door. He lifted a hand. She lifted hers back. Your kid is brave. She should not have to be. No, he said. She should not. When he left, the light thinned and the day settled. I took the white envelope from the drawer and smoothed it on the table. We know who you used to be. I thought of a door in a dream and a smell like metal and rain. I thought of a man in a car with neat hair and a small crescent scar under his ear. I thought of Paul's eyes when he told me the truth about his mouth. I thought of Karen holding onto her cross like it was a handle on a train. I am trying to belong to a street with sprinklers and rules and small kindnesses. Someone wants me to be the man from before. Someone wants to pull that man out of me and hold him up to the sun and say, see? See what he is? Naomi came and leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. Can we make the volcano this weekend? She asked. We could invite the street, even Karen. She can bring a casserole. I laughed. It surprised me. Maybe, I said. Maybe we can do that. It is easier to make plans than to make peace. It is easier to make tea than to sleep. It is easier to love your own child than to love a neighbor who scares her. None of that means we do not try. On Maple Lane, at dusk, porch lights come on in a slow wave. The light looks like small promises. Some are kept. Some are not. I watched them blink on, house by house, and felt the day change shape inside me. Far down the street, a car engine turned over and stopped, then turned over again. The sound was patient. The sound was a plan. The back gate stayed locked. The robin flew. The chalk stars waited for night and then glowed in the way chalk never does. Only in the eyes of a child who will not give darkness the last word. That night, the house went quiet in that way that has its own sound. Naomi slept with one hand over her face, the way she has since she was a baby. I stood at the back door and watched the yard. The patio chalk still glowed in a soft way that comes from memory, not light. A breeze moved the leaves. The gate was a dark shape on the fence line. There was a small blue ribbon tied to the inside latch. I knew that ribbon. I knew it in my bones. We used to tie one like it to mark a clean way through a place that could cut you. Blue for safety. Red for pain. Everything is simple when you are young and the world is a map. My hand closed before I told it to. I opened the gate slowly and looked at the dirt by the hinge. Fresh scuff. The same straight line tread as earlier. Someone had come in quietly. Someone had tied a ribbon in my house like a joke only I would get. I took the ribbon and put it in my pocket next to the letter. I stood there and listened to the night settle. The air smelled like cut grass and something faint under it, like oil. The kind you use to keep a small machine from squeaking. The next morning, a flyer sat on the porch where the notice had been yesterday. Safety seminar, it said neat and blue. Protecting our community. Hosted by Oak Meadow HOA. Guest speaker, Caleb Ward, Guardian Partners. 6 p.m. at the clubhouse. All residents required to attend. Required, I thought. That was a word with a shape. Naomi touched the paper with one finger. Can I come? Not tonight, I said. I'll be back before bed. She made a face. Okay, she said. Can we make popcorn anyway? For after. Popcorn after, I said, and she smiled like someone had given her a small crown. At 6, the clubhouse smelled like coffee from a pot that had been on too long. Chairs stood in straight rows, the kind that make your back behave. A screen hung white at the front. People looked at each other with faces that had been polite for too long. Karen sat in the front with her clipboard on her knees, the silver cross at her neck, her mouth set in a line I had seen on rulers. Caleb stood next to the screen in a gray suit that looked expensive in a way you don't notice right away. His hair was neat. The small crescent scar under his ear was a pale note on a tidy line of skin. He smiled without showing teeth. He had a binder under his arm with tabs that said things like protocols and incident types and documentation. "Thank you for being here," he said. His voice was warm in that professional way that makes people hand over their fear like a coat at a door. Our neighborhoods are strong when we are vigilant. We are safe when we know what to look for. He clicked a remote. The screen is filled with bullet points. Suspicious behavior, perimeter breaches, graffiti, and vandalism. He spoke in neat sentences. He told the story of a town 3 counties over where a man had watched and not acted, and everything had gone wrong. He told the story of a woman who had trusted and paid a price. He said, "You are the line. Stand firm." The words from Karen's phone, dressed up and put on a stage. He clicked again. Images came. Ring camera clips of people walking too close to porches. Mailboxes left open. A kid on a skateboard in slow motion, as if the slowness made him dangerous. Then the screen changed. A photo from a long time ago filled the room. A line of men in sand and dust, gear on, eyes blacked by the angle of the sun. I knew the man in the middle. I knew the way he stood. My hand tightened on the underside of my chair. "Sometimes," Caleb said, and his voice softened like he was letting us in on something special. "A threat is not wearing a hoodie. Sometimes a threat looks like a neighbor. Not by intent," he added quickly, palms open, like a man who is not a monster. "By history." The next slide was a news clipping from years ago. Words like operation and contested and allegation floated like fish that did not want to be caught. He clicked again, and a name and rank appeared in clean type. Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter. An old badge number. Dates. Units. Places with names that sound like prayers when said by the wrong mouth. There was a soft sound in the room as people let out air they did not know they were holding. Heads turned. Not all the way. Just enough. I did not move. I counted the chairs from the back row to the front and stopped at 12. "I am not saying this to alarm anyone," Caleb said, the picture of reason. "I respect our veterans. I am one." He let the word sit. "But we must be aware. We must be careful. We must hold everyone to the same standard. We cannot let any one person, no matter their past, be exempt from rules designed to keep all of us safe." He clicked again. A short video played. Grainy. Night vision. A door. A flash. Voices in a language most of the room didn't know. A child crying somewhere off screen. The clip cut before anything was resolved. It left a feeling, not a fact. "Context matters," he said. But so does prudence. When an individual with specialized training reacts under stress, outcomes can be extreme. Paul shifted in his chair 2 rows ahead. He turned halfway and looked at me. His face had the same shape it had when he told me about his big mouth. He opened his mouth now and then closed it. Rebecca stared straight ahead. Her hands were white at the knuckles, folded in her lap. Karen lifted her chin like a judge asked to nod at a sentence she had already written. Caleb closed the binder with a neat little clap. "We are not here to shame. We are here to protect. We will ask all residents to sign a revised safety policy tonight. No confrontations. No exceptions. All concerns go through the board and our office. If you feel threatened, you remove yourself and call us first. We will handle the narrative." He smiled that toothless smile. "We will keep Oak Meadow safe." He opened the floor for questions. Thomas from the Yellow House asked about sensor lights. A woman in a green dress asked if chalk dust could damage the finish on sidewalks. Caleb said yes, it could if it built up. He said it was like science. He said it like the truth. Then Paul stood. He did not look at Caleb. He looked at the room. "Yesterday, I watched a neighbor point a gun at a child," he said. "That is what happened. It wasn't a protocol. It was a mistake. Maybe a sin. I don't care what anyone's past is. We don't do that here. Not on our street." Caleb's smile held. That is exactly why we need clear steps, Paul. So fear does not make anyone overreact, including those with training, including those without. Then why did you send her messages telling her she did well? Rebecca said, standing to now, voice sharp as glass. Why did you tell her to stand firm and not let them bully her? Who are they, Caleb? A small tremor went through the room. A ripple the chairs could not stop. Caleb's smile did not reach his eyes. We encourage our volunteers to be confident, he said. We use standard language in our communications. It is important that nobody feels alone. He looked at me then, finally. His gaze was full and plain, like a hand pressed to a window. The scar under his ear caught the light. The room turned a little. It was small, the way a boat tips when the water shifts. Not a lot. Enough. I stood because I did not want to sit. My name is Daniel Carter, I said. My daughter is Naomi. I am here to raise her, to mow my lawn, to pay my dues, to wave at your dogs, to fix my door that sticks. I won't be a problem to anyone who doesn't bring a problem to my door. Someone in the back coughed. Someone said, he's calm, like it was a surprise. Caleb tilted his head. Then he said a thing he should not have been able to say. How's your sleep these days, Staff Sergeant? Still see the door? Still smell the rain? The room went colder. The words were small, but they were not supposed to be in his mouth. They belonged to a time and a place that had no windows. They belonged to men who had signed papers that said they would not speak. I felt the old ground tilt under me. Then I heard my own voice, soft. You don't get that line unless you've been there. He smiled with teeth now. We've both been there. His name was Caleb Ward on the binder. It had been something else, once. It didn't matter what my eyes called him. My hands remembered his weight. My shoulder remembered his laugh in a Chinook that smelled like oil and heat. My ribs remembered his elbow when we hit the dirt the same second. My gut remembered the way he cut a corner too sharp and left someone hanging. You died, I said. The words sounded strange in a bright room. I got reassigned, he said lightly. We all do, in a way. The world tipped again. The ribbon in my pocket burned like a small fire. He looked at the room, then back at me. You told the inquiry I went beyond the mandate, he said, still smiling. He did not say I sold name. He did not say I made a trade. He did not say I took something and left a hole. He didn't need to. The words hung between us like a torn flag. He tapped the binder with one finger. Now I protect neighborhoods. 2 seats over, Paul's face changed. It wasn't anger. It was kind of breaking. He sank down. His shoulders rolled forward. When the questions ended and the sign-up sheets came out, he didn't move. The meeting broke in the slow, messy way meetings do. People avoided my eyes like my eyes had heat. Rebecca touched my arm. Don't go straight home, she said quietly. Give it 10 minutes. Let them forget where you park. Outside, under the old maples, she stopped me. There's something else, she said. I didn't know what to say. But now. Paul walked up fast, face pale. He looked sick. Daniel, there's a thing I did. Stupid. 2 months ago, when we got the fence fixed, Caleb said he could remeasure for us and maybe fix it with the board. He asked for a spare side gate key. Said it would save me time. I gave it to him. I'm sorry. I thought it was just a fence. I never took it back. That's on me. The blue ribbon in my pocket felt heavier. The scuff at the hinge looked up at me from last night like a smile. My jaw clicked. I'll change the locks, I said. He swallowed. I deserve worse. Don't talk to him again, I said. About me. About anything. Done, he said, voice small. I'll stand where you tell me to stand. Rebecca leaned in. There's more. Karen's brother's robbery. She lowered her voice. The video Caleb showed to her Bible group of the suspect near their yard? I saw the same man in his old training slides tonight. Different beard. Same eyes. He staged it. He needs fear to sell his work. It fit too neatly. It fits in the way a lie fits a gap you want filled. I wanted to doubt it. I watched Karen come down the clubhouse steps, slow and neat, clutching her binder like a child clutches a book. Caleb's hand brushed her elbow. She flinched like she wanted the touch and hated herself for wanting it. Back at home, Naomi had drawn a river across the patio, blue chalk bright and simple. She made little boats and gave them names. Hope, Pie, Cat, Popcorn, she said. Popcorn, I said, and we ate it from the same bowl on the couch. She told me a story from her book about a girl who finds a secret door in a tree that leads to a library that keeps books that want to be left alone. I listened and nodded and let my mind stay in the room. After she slept, I sat at the kitchen table with the white letter, the blue ribbon, and the Deputy Price's card. I spread them like a small hand of bad cards in a game I didn't want to play. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. Door 13. Metal and rain. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Bring your temper. We'll make a movie. See. I could see it, the script. He would poke me on my own porch. He would make sure the right phones were out. He would make me into a story that fit his binder. He would feed it to the board and the station and the paper and the people who like to talk over fences. He would make me the man in the clip. I turned off the phone. I put it face down the way Karen had put hers. I went to Naomi's room and watched her breathe. I sat on the floor by her bed and let the carpet press lines into my palm. The house was quiet. The moon made a shape on the wall like a window where there was no window. I remembered the door for my dream. I remembered the smell. I remembered the way it opened by itself and nothing was inside. In the dark, I made a plan that was made of light. I would not be the man he wanted. I would not let his fear find a home in my house. I would tell the truth before he did. I would pull his teeth before he bit. And still, under all that, a smaller plan shifted. If he came to my door the way he said, I would end it before Naomi heard the first knock. Morning came with a quiet that felt like a test. I stood at the sink and watched the light crawl up the fence. Naomi patted in, hair loose, eyes still soft from sleep. She stood on my feet the way she used to when she was small, and we would dance in the kitchen to a radio that didn't always work. I had a dream, she said. The chalk river flooded and turned into real water, and the boats floated away, but they weren't sad. Good, I said. Boats should float. She watched my face for a second, then reached for the cereal. You have your thinking face, she said. The one you get when you do math without numbers. I almost laughed. I have two plans, I said. I like one. I hate the others. Which one wins? The one that keeps you safe. She nodded like it was a simple thing and poured milk. Are we still making the volcano this weekend? We are. She took a bite, then another. Can I go to school? She asked. I don't want to hide all day. I don't like hiding. I could have kept her home. I could have folded the day around us like a blanket. But the blanket would have turned heavy. It would have taught a lesson I don't want her to learn. Yes, I said. I'll drive you. On the way, she watched the trees go by like pages in a green book. Near the stoplight, I checked the mirror and saw a silver car, two back. I felt the old map inside me unfold. The car turned off at the grocery store. I let her out and felt foolish for holding it in. At the school, a teacher in a denim jacket waved and called Naomi by name, and my throat tightened with a strange kind of gratitude, the kind that feels like rain in a dry place. Naomi squeezed my hand once and hopped out. You're brave, I said. I'm normal, she said, and ran to the door. I parked 2 streets over and called Ethan. He picked up on the second ring. He sounded like a man in a room too bright. Morning, he said. You okay? I got a message from Caleb, I said. Door 13. 9 o'clock. He wants a show. He'll want you to show him your teeth, Ethan said. Don't. I won't, I said. But I can't let him keep making the stories. No, he said. He thought for a second. Door 13 is the service gate by the pool pumps. Smells like chlorine when the wind is wrong. The old hinge squeals. Metal and rain. He wants you out of sight of the lobby cameras. You know the doors, I said. I grew up here, he said. I know too much about everything that's small and not enough about anything that's big. We made a plan that was a thread, not a rope. He would be near, not on top of me. I would not engage. If Caleb talked, he talked into the air. If he tried to step onto my yard later, Ethan would be faster than the story. I sent Rebecca a text and asked if she could keep an eye on our front door for an hour. She sent a thumbs up and a picture of a stray cat on her porch, as if that could bless the plan. At 8:55, I was behind the hedge by the clubhouse where the lawn slopes down toward the retention pond. The grass was wet on my knees. The air had that metal edge. Sprinklers clicked somewhere close. My phone faced out, camera on, the lens tucked into a small gap in the leaves. At 9 on the dot, the service door opened with a little squeal. Caleb stepped out with his binder and his neatly calm face. Karen came with him. She held her clipboard like a shield. Behind them, Mark and Linda from the board, names I knew from newsletters and not from their mouths, hovered in the doorway, unsure if they were part of the scene or the audience. Caleb walked to the edge of the concrete and breathed in like a man smelling rain. He took out his phone and checked the camera angles above the main doors without looking like he was checking. He had the grace of a predator who likes to pretend he is a guardian. He won't come, Karen said, voice tight. He's smarter than that. He will, Caleb said softly. He wants to be good. Good men like to explain themselves. They can't stand being misunderstood. He has a child, Karen said, as if that mattered in a way she could not name. Children are important, Caleb said. They make people listen. Nobody watched our videos until a certain clip got a cry in the background. That changed the numbers. That changed the board. Mark cleared his throat. We agreed to no confrontations, he said, trying out his authority like a jacket that didn't quite fit. We agreed to keep the neighborhood safe, Caleb said, without looking at him. I am doing that. And I am keeping you out of trouble while I do it. Karen looked toward the parking lot. She was dressed in a pale cardigan again. Her mouth moved like she was saying a small prayer or counting. We're going to get sued, she said. We won't, Caleb said. Because we will have proper documentation. Because we will have a pattern. Because we can show a reasonable fear based on credible information. Because we are the ones who call first. He said the words like a surgeon naming bones. It made me colder to hear how well he knew the body of fear. I felt a tiny vibration in my pocket. A text from Rebecca. 2 men at your door. Not uniforms. Says city inspection. I'm on the porch. Do I stall? I read it twice. I pictured Naomi's backpack on her chair, her cereal bowl in the sink, the chalk dust on the patio, and the blue ribbon in the drawer. I looked at Caleb standing in the smell of metal and rain, waiting for me to be a man I did not want to be. I wrote back, do not engage. Call Ethan. Tell them to wait for me. Lock my door. I watched Caleb check his watch. We moved to step 2 if he doesn't take the bait, he said. We can't let the story cool. People's sympathy goes soft if they don't eat the meal while it's hot. What is step 2? Karen asked, and her voice broke on the last word like a branch. She knew and didn't want to hear him say it. A welfare check, he said. A safety concern. A child in a high-stress environment with a parent with a documented history of explosive responses. We don't accuse. We ask. We let the state make the mess. Linda made a sound that was not a word. It had the shape of one. She turned her face away like she was trying not to be seen by her own shame. Don't, Karen whispered. Please. Caleb's face didn't change. You called me for a reason, Karen. Don't get soft now. You saw how he looked at you. I saw myself in the glass of his door, she said. I saw a woman holding a gun. I saw a little girl with her hands in the air. I haven't slept, Caleb. I keep seeing her fingers. They were so small. For the first time, I felt something for her that wasn't anger. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a small ache for someone who had built a life out of straight lines and had just learned that people don't fit them. Caleb adjusted his cuff. Guilt is a tool or it's a weight, he said. Choose. The door squealed again. Mark stepped back inside. I heard the low hum of the pump and a laugh from a far room where somebody was setting up for a birthday party. The world is rude in how it mixes its sounds. Ethan's text came. On our way to your house. Don't show at the door. I will. I stayed in the bushes and breathed like a man learning how to again. I let the phone record until Caleb put his phone away and walked Karen back inside, patting her shoulder like a man patting a good dog. He didn't see me. He didn't need to. He believed I would always step into the light when he snapped his fingers. I drove home slow enough to pass for calm. My hands left damp marks on the wheel. The sky had gone white with heat. The chalk river on our patio looked brighter against it. 2 city workers stood on my walkway, clipboards in hand. They had the tired eyes of people who had knocked on a lot of doors. Rebecca sat on my porch railing with a stray cat in her lap, like she had always lived there. Inspection, she said cheerfully. You're early. He's on his way. Ethan's cruiser rolled in like a quiet promise. He got out with his hat in his hand. He smiled at the city men in that professional way that is both friendly and not. Morning, he said. You fellows got a work order number for this inspection? They did. He checked it. It was real, but it had notes in the margin that made a small cold pool in my stomach. Welfare concern flagged. Child present? Unknown. Officer assistance requested if confrontation. We're just here about the fence height and a possible unpermitted shed, one of the men said quickly, as if the words could shield him. We don't want any trouble. No trouble, Ethan said. He looked at me. You want me to be inside while they look? Yes, I said. We walked through the house together like people walking through a memory. The city men measured a fence with a metal tape that clicked and slid. The sound made a muscle in my neck jump. They checked the shed. They wrote things down. They were fine. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't know. A photo of Naomi at the school bus line from this morning. Her head turned, her mouth open like she was telling a joke. The caption, she deserves better stories. Door 13 again. Noon. I stared at it until the edges went soft. Ethan looked over my shoulder, and his mouth pressed into a line. Send it to me, he said. I sent it. I sent the recording from the hedge, too. I watched the file slide away on a small blue line and felt like I had put something important on thin ice and asked it not to crack. When the inspectors left, Rebecca followed them to the curb with the cat still in her arms like a strange government official. She came back and looked at my face and didn't pretend not to see what was there. Want me to get Naomi early? She asked. No, I said. We keep normal as long as we can. She nodded. Then I'll make sandwiches for after. And I'll sit on my porch and look like I am not guarding your house while I am guarding your house. Thank you, I said. I stood in the doorway and looked at the street. Karen was in her window, not hiding, not waving. She watched the inspectors go and pressed her hand to the glass like a woman inside a painting. For a second, her face looked naked. Then the blind dropped. I had choices to make that all tasted bad. I could go to the clubhouse at noon and let him take another picture with a better caption. I could stay home and wait for the next knock, the next paper, the next small cut. I could take Naomi and leave this street with its sprinklers and rules and the sound of a spoon in a sink. I could fight. I could sit. I could speak. I took the white envelope from the drawer and wrote on the back with a pen that had been in a cup too long. I wrote, we know who you used to be. Then under it, I wrote, I know who I am now. I folded it and walked across the street and slid it under Karen's door before I could talk myself out of it. Halfway back across the lawn, the door opened. She stood there with the paper in her hand and the cross bright at her throat. I am sorry, she said. The words were thin and small. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am telling you I am sorry. I nodded. Then don't help him, I said. When he asks you to do step 2, say no. She looked at the note again. He says you are dangerous, she whispered. I am dangerous, I said. To men like him. Not to your chalk. Not to your child. If you had one drawing a river on the ground. Her eyes filled and did not spill. She nodded once, like someone making a promise to herself. I won't go to the clubhouse at noon, she said. I will stay home and make soup. That is what I can manage today. Okay, I said. Back inside, I felt like I had stepped into a room with a low ceiling. The air felt heavy. The blue ribbon in the drawer glowed in its own way. It meant a path. It meant go this way. It meant a trick. At 11:50, my phone buzzed again. A video, short. The service door. Metal. Rain. Caleb's voice, soft. Time's almost up, Staff Sergeant. Don't miss your cue. I did not go. I called Ethan. He said, I'm already there. He said, he'll talk to the air. Let him talk. He said, he wants your shadow more than he wants your face. I stood at the back door and watched the chalk river not move. I listened to my own breath. I held the edge of the counter until my fingers hurt and let the hurt remind me I am in this body, in this house, on this quiet street that is not quiet, with a little girl in a classroom 2 miles away who tells jokes at the bus line and likes to give boats names that make sense only to her. At 12:15, Ethan sent a text. He stood in the open, a small figure on my screen. He faced Caleb under the big white sky by the service door. Caleb's mouth moved. Ethan did not. Karen's name flashed on my phone with a single word. No. The day stretched, thin as glass. I waited for it to break. The glass finally cracked at 3, when the sun turned white and the air over the road shook like a small mirage. A white sedan that wasn't Ethan's slid to the curb. 2 people got out with state badges on lanyards that clicked against their chests. They looked tired and careful, like people who spend their days walking into the rooms nobody wants to see. Rebecca texted me from a porch before they knocked. They're here. I'm with them. Breathe. I opened the door before they could press the bell. The woman in front introduced herself as Claire, her partner as David. She had kind eyes and a notebook that looked heavier than it should. The deputy with them was young and wary, not Ethan. We received a welfare concern, Claire said. We'd like to talk to you and your daughter. She's at school, I said. You can talk to me. Of course, Claire said. She didn't push. We can also come back when she's home. Come in, I said. They stepped into my small clean house with their big careful job. The deputy stayed near the door. Rebecca stood in the doorway with a plate of sandwiches like a flag of ordinary. The kitchen is fine, Claire said, and wrote that down, as if the fact mattered. Can you tell me about your routine? Your support? Any stressors we should know about? The street is a support on some days and a stressor on others, I said. We have breakfast. We go to school. We make chalk rivers. We plan to build a volcano. Claire looked up at that last part and almost smiled. That sounds like a good house, she said. David walked to the back door and looked at the patio. Nice art, he said. The way you talk about a child's drawing when you don't know the child yet. My phone buzzed. Ethan outside. Don't open unless you have to. I'm here. I looked past the deputy to the porch. Ethan stood on the walk, hat off, hands easy. Behind him, as if he had been attached by an invisible string, Caleb leaned against the HOA sign across the street. He had his binder and his neat hair and the small crescent scar. He looked like a placeholder for danger, the kind of picture magazine articles used to make you read. He lifted his phone and framed my house, his face blank. Outside, Paul stepped out with Baxter and took a spot on the lawn like he had bought a ticket to a show. Rebecca set the sandwiches down and squared her shoulders and sat on my top step like a woman willing herself to be heavier than fear. Claire saw where my eyes went. We can ask them to give us space, she said gently. They won't, I said. The man with the binder is why you are here. Claire wrote that down, and it hurt to watch her write it, because writing made it real in a way that saying it didn't. The deputy cleared his throat. He wanted the boxes checked, the questions asked, and the day moved along. I could see it, the small relief of forms. I had lived a life once where forms were the thing that came after the thing that mattered and tried to make it neat. We had an inspection earlier, I said. We have a recording from a meeting last night. I slid my phone across the counter. He is provoking this, I said, and it felt like putting my hand in a machine and hoping it didn't bite. Claire listened. She played the part by the pumps, the smell of metal and rain in the speaker, the squeal of the door, Caleb's voice. We moved to step 2. Let the state make the mess. Something in Claire's face changed, small and precise, like a lens moving. She didn't stop writing, but she looked at me now like a person and not a case. I'd like to step outside, she said, if that's all right. We walked onto the porch. Ethan met us at the bottom step. He nodded once to Claire, a nod like people who have run into each other in the hallways of bad days. Afternoon, he said. We're doing our best to keep this boring. Across the street, Caleb pushed off the sign and smiled with his teeth. Officer Price, he said, we all want what's best for the child. We will let the professionals decide what that is, Ethan said evenly. Of course, Caleb said. He moved his gaze to me. You skipped our meeting. That hurt my feelings. File a report, I said. He laughed softly. I prefer stories to reports. Cars slowed at the corner and then moved on. The neighborhood gathered in that way neighborhoods do, one body at a time until it looks like a crowd. Thomas stood at his mailbox with his arms crossed. Mark and Linda hovered on the sidewalk, shirts tidy, eyes tired. Karen came out of her house and stopped at the edge of her lawn. She wore her pale cardigan again, like a promise she couldn't quite keep. She looked at me, and then at the chalk river on my patio, and then down at her hands. Claire stepped off the porch and stood in the middle of my walkway, small and steady. Mr. Ward, she said, reading his badge without looking at it, because the binder had told her his name days ago. We will conduct our assessment without commentary from non-family. Caleb's eyebrows lifted. Public sidewalk, he said. Free speech. Not for harassment, Ethan said. And not for trespass. He lifted a small bag. Is this your ribbon? He asked, his voice mild. He held up the blue strip, the one for my gate. It looked thinner in the sun, a little fray at one edge like a secret coming undone. Caleb didn't blink. What is that? Funny, Ethan said softly. Because the edges match the tear on a spool in your trunk. You had your tailgate open at the clubhouse this morning. You should close things when you're done with them. Caleb's face stayed neat, but his shoulders went hard. Do you have a warrant to go through my things? I don't need a warrant to see a thing you show the world, Ethan said. And I don't need one to arrest you for trespass if I can place you behind this man's fence without his permission. Paul took a small step forward. He had a key, he said, the words stumbling over each other like feet. I gave it to him. For my gate, not Daniel's. He used it where he shouldn't have. That's on me. And on him. Caleb tilted his head at Paul, pitying. People give me things all the time when they want help, he said. Rules are confusing. I like to make them simpler. Karen made a sound then. It was small and sharp, a thing bitten through. Stop, she said, and her voice trembled. She walked into the street with her cross bright in the light and held up her phone. Claire, she said, addressing the woman with the notebook because she needed someone kind to look at her while she turned herself inside out. I asked him what to do when my fear wouldn't go away. He told me to hold a gun. He told me to make a call I shouldn't have made. Her eyes went to me and then skittered away. I filed a welfare concern this morning. I did it. But I did it because he wrote the words for me. He told me it was the right thing. He told me if I didn't, I would be responsible if something went wrong. He makes everything sound like a test, and I am good at passing tests. Her hands shook. The phone trembled in them like a live thing. I don't want to be this person, she said. I don't want to be the woman in the glass. Caleb looked at her with a small smile that was almost kind. It was worse than anger. Karen, he said gently, you did what was right. Don't let them bully you now. Don't let them rewrite the story. Rebecca stepped forward then, hands empty, shoulders squared. You like stories, she said to Caleb. Here's one. The robber in the video you showed at her Bible group? The man near her brother's yard? He's the same man in your training slides from a town 3 states away. I looked frame by frame. The same scar on the knuckle. Same walk. You took a story from somewhere else and wore it like a coat here. You draped it over her fear. Linda, quiet until now, put a shaking hand to her mouth. Mark swore under his breath like a man who has finally realized the price of a small decision made on a lazy afternoon. Caleb's smile thinned. Careful, he said. That's a serious claim. It's a serious truth, Rebecca said. Ethan lifted his phone. I sent your text to my supervisor, he said. You did well. We will handle the narrative. You want to explain that language to a judge? You want to talk about patterns? Because I see one. Caleb's face cooled by a degree you could feel in the shade. He looked at me. You think this saves you? He asked softly. You think a couple of nervous neighbors and a boy with a badge can keep a lid on a story? The world is hungry. They eat men like you. I feed them. You fed them before, I said, and my voice was quiet because the thing I was saying didn't need volume. You sold a name once because you wanted a clean way out. You said the words you had to say to a man with a notebook like hers. I nodded at Claire. Only his eyes were not kind. A child cried and you called it wind. I told the truth and they wrote it down and you were reassigned to a place with no windows. His gaze flicked. For a second, the clean lines fell off his face and I saw the old boy, the one who cut corners and laughed too loud, the one who could be brave as a dog until a moment he wasn't. The past moved between us like heat above asphalt. You don't get to follow me home, I said. He stepped toward the curb. Ethan lifted a hand. The deputy beside the door adjusted his stance. Claire didn't move. Caleb stopped not because of the law, but because the street moved in a small way. Thomas let his arms drop. Paul took another slow step. Rebecca stood on my steps like she had planted her feet. Karen looked at her cross and then let it fall back to her chest. She put the phone down and lifted her chin. Leave, she said to Caleb. Her voice was low. Take your binder and your fear and leave our street. He laughed quietly, but the laugh didn't land. I have a contract, he said. Not anymore, Mark said, surprising himself, surprising all of us. He pulled a folded sheet from his back pocket with shaking fingers. I met with Linda at lunch. We called an emergency vote. We can terminate services with cause. We have cause. He held the paper up like a weak shield and a small banner both. You used our list to sell fear. You trespassed. You put us at risk of a lawsuit we can't pay. You're done. Caleb's eyes went to Linda. She looked at her shoes and then straight at him. You're done, she said again, softer, more sure. Ethan stepped closer. Caleb Ward, he said. I'm detaining you for trespass and interference with a state investigation. We're going to talk downtown about your messages and your materials. You can call your lawyer from there. Caleb smiled one last time, and this one looked like a mask he couldn't peel off. He put his hands out in front of him like a man Jesuit enough to make surrender look like control. Ethan didn't cuff him there on my lawn. He didn't need to. He put a hand on his arm and guided him toward the cruiser, as if the two of them were leaving a party together. Halfway to the car, Caleb turned his head and caught my eye. They'll still think about it, he said softly. When they see you alone at night on your porch. When a news clip pops up with your face next to words they don't know how to carry. They'll still wonder. That is what I leave you. Not a door. A mirror. You don't leave me, my daughter, I said. You don't leave me at my house. You can't take my quiet. That is not yours. He looked at Naomi then, except she wasn't there, and that was the point. He blinked, as if his plan had skipped a line, and the script wouldn't read. The cruiser door closed with a low thump. The sound rolled down the street and disappeared. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The neighborhood held its breath and then let it out all at once. A lawnmower started somewhere, as bold as a trumpet. Claire put her notebook away. She looked at me. I'm not closing this case today, she said, honestly, because it mattered. That's not how this works. But here's what I see. She ticked it off with her fingers, small and calm. A child who is cared for. A home that is stable. A network, flawed but present, willing to stand. A community that can still choose better. She looked at Karen then, and the corner of her mouth softened. I will note that the initial report was influenced by an outside party who had a vested interest. That matters. Karen walked across the street without her clipboard. She stopped at the bottom of my steps. I am sorry, she said again, and this time the words didn't feel thin. I will bake you something that is not a casserole. I will learn to wave first. I will stay out of your yard and out of your life until you tell me otherwise. Come to the volcano, Naomi said from behind me, and my heart kicked because I hadn't heard the bus. And there she was, small and taller every day, backpack slung, eyes bright. Rebecca had gone to get her without asking, and now stood smiling like this was always how it would go. The volcano is on Saturday, Naomi told Karen. No guns allowed. Only bubbles. Karen's breath caught and then left. Okay, she said. I can agree to that. Paul came and put his hand on my shoulder without looking at me. I'll replace the gate lock today, he said. And I'll paint your fence if you want because I need to do something with my hands or my head will eat me. Bring Baxter, Naomi said. He's good with circles. Ethan lingered on the edge of the lawn. I'll be in touch, he said. There will be calls. And maybe a piece in the paper. But today, nobody raises their voice at your door without a badge and a good reason. The sun shifted. The white heat went a shade softer. The chalk river on the patio looked like a road again, not a warning. Inside, Claire signed something and left a card on the counter. Her name looked like a promise in ink. Rebecca took the sandwiches home and brought back a pie nobody needed. Karen went into her house and cried where nobody could see. Mark called a meeting and used words like accountability that tasted new in his mouth. Linda emailed the contract termination and copied the city attorney and sat very still for a long time. I walked to the drawer and took out the white letter. I folded it in half and then in half again until it was small. I dropped it in the trash and didn't look to see where it landed. When the sky went gold, Naomi and I chalked a circle on the driveway. We wrote in big block letters, safe. She drew a door next to it, a simple rectangle with a handle and a little window at the top. She colored the window blue. What's that? I asked. The door from your dream, she said. I think it should have a window, so you can see what's inside before you open it. What's inside? I asked. She smiled. Popcorn, she said, as if that were obvious. And books that don't mind being read. And soup that doesn't burn your tongue. We stood there and looked at the door we had drawn on the ground. It didn't smell like metal or rain. It smelled like chalk and sun-warm concrete and the faint sugar of the pie Rebecca couldn't help but bring. The porch lights began to blink down the street, a slow wave of small promises. On Maple Lane, people tell stories to make sense of what they did and did not do. They stitch them together until the quilt is big enough to cover the whole day. Today, their stitches were held. I watched Naomi put the last stroke of blue on the little window. I put my hand on the warm shoulder of my child and felt the quiet settle in my chest like a bird that has decided this branch will do. I am not the man he came looking for. I know who I am now. And I will teach my daughter that fear is loud, but it is not always right. That rules are thin if they are not held up by kindness. That doors can open to nothing, or they can open to light. depending on who was holding the handle. We went inside and made popcorn. We left the door open to let the night air move around the rooms. Somewhere down the street, someone laughed. Somewhere else, someone said sorry and meant it. The mirror Caleb wanted to leave me held our faces together, not apart. That would be the story we kept. The week after felt like a room we had to put back together slowly, piece by piece, careful not to break anything that had survived. Claire came back once more, sat at our table, asked questions in a voice that made space for answers. She noted the volcano supplies stacked in the corner and the chalk on Naomi's hands, and the way the house smelled like tea. She looked at our fridge covered in lists and drawings and crooked magnets, and said, "This is a good place for a kid." She did not close her notebook that day, but her eyes said she would, soon. Before she left, she crouched on the patio, looked at the blue river, and told Naomi she liked the boat named Pi. When Naomi laughed, Claire did too. It sounded like a windowsill in the sun. News moved through the neighborhood the way it always does, sideways, in pieces, on air. Mark sent an email that tried too hard and still mattered. The board had terminated its contract with Guardian Partners. There would be a public apology at the next meeting. Safety policies would be rewritten, this time with the input of actual neighbors and the sheriff's office. Chalk was declared harmless, officially, for anyone who needed ink to believe what Rain had always known. Caleb's name showed up in the local paper on page 3, small and stiff. Words like detain and pending an investigation. It was the kind of story that moves people's mouths for a day and then slides under the fridge with the dust. That was fine with me. Let big stories go hungry sometimes. Paul replaced our gate lock that afternoon. He did it slowly and carefully, like penance. He brought Baxter, who trotted around with solemn responsibility, then fell asleep in a patch of sun with his head on a coil of chain like it was a pillow. Paul didn't talk much. He measured twice, drilled once, tightened everything until it sang. When he finished, he put the old lock in my hand like a man returning a relic. The metal felt cold and useless. "You don't owe me anything," I said. He nodded without believing me. "I owe you better days," he said. "I can help with those." We stood there in the small peace men sometimes find when their hands have done a task well. Naomi came out with lemonade and 3 plastic cups, and we drank on the steps and watched the light slide across the fence. Across the street, Karen came and went with smaller movements than before. She carried no clipboard. She left her cardigan draped on a chair on her porch like a flag at rest. She watered her flowers with a care that wasn't about perfection anymore, only about keeping them alive. On the 3rd day, she walked over with a plate covered in a towel. "I said not a casserole," she said, managing a thin smile. "So I made lemon bars. They are too sweet. That is what I had to give." We ate one each in the yard, like people learning a new language. They were too sweet. They were perfect. On Saturday, the street came to our driveway for the volcano. The air smelled like grass and heat and vinegar. Kids shouted and ran and fell and got up. Chalk dust mixed with laughter and the soft scuff of sneakers. Paul set up a folding table with cups and napkins. Rebecca brought a pitcher of something full of ice and slices of fruit that turned the liquid a friendly pink. Ethan stopped by off-duty in a t-shirt, badge not on his chest, only a man with hands and a smile, and a sister visiting town who taught 2nd grade and stood beside him, grinning at the science. Karen came last, alone, hair down for once. She stood at the edge and watched the first eruption with her hand over her mouth like a child at a magic show. When the foam rose and spilled down the cardboard hill, the kids squealed. Naomi clapped, then caught Karen's eye. "Want to pour the vinegar?" Naomi asked, holding out the little red cup that would start the next reaction. Karen blinked fast and nodded. She bent and held the cup in both hands like a communion she didn't expect to be offered. She poured. The volcano breathed. Foam blossomed. Something in her face eased. Nobody clapped for her. Nobody needed to. It was enough to make a small thing happen that did no harm. I felt my shoulders unlock one notch. I didn't know how many notches there were. I knew I couldn't force them all at once. You learned that with doors, too. After people left, after the last cup went in the trash, and the last chalked fish was saved from the hose with a phone picture, Naomi and I sat on the warm concrete and ate the last lemon bar. She licked sugar from her finger and leaned her head on my arm. "Do you feel better?" she asked. "About some things," I said. "Which ones?" "The kind we can fix," I said. "The kind we can point to with chalk." She nodded. She is satisfied with specific truths. She knows there are other kinds. She lets me carry those until they are small enough for her to hold. That night, I dreamed of the door again. The white sky was gone. The air didn't taste like metal. The door had the little blue window we had drawn. Light moved behind it, soft and ordinary. I walked to it without running. I put my hand on the handle and felt wood, not heat. When it opened onto our kitchen in late afternoon. The sink full of rinse cups, the kettle breathing, a line of small shoes by the mat, a drawing of a river on the counter, a smell like popcorn and mint and something sweet. I stood there and let the feeling of it wash over me, simple and loud. I woke up with the taste still in my mouth. In the days that followed, the world did not become perfect. That is not what a small street can do. There were still notices about bins left visible and hedges too high. There were still arguments about where to park on Tuesdays. There were still nights when the dog barked and I got up and checked the locks and walked the perimeter of the house with my feet silent and my heart making old sounds. But there were also new rules written on purpose. The board called it a pledge. I called it common sense. We will breathe first. We will speak to each other before we speak on the phone. We will keep our hands empty when we can. We will call for help when help is needed. We will not make stories to sell fear. We will let children draw rivers that wash away. We will not use anyone's past to punish their present. It wasn't framed or engraved. It was an email with bullet points. It lived on a refrigerator and the back of a mind. Still, it helped. One evening, Claire came by in plain clothes, no notebook, no deputy. She asked if she could sit on my porch for a minute. We watched the light change. "I closed your file," she said. "I wanted to say that in person." "Thank you," I said. "I think about my work a lot," she said, not looking at me, watching a moth find a porch light and then forget it and then find it again. "I think about the thin line between caution and harm. Paper can do damage sometimes. So I cannot write things down. The only way I know how to walk that line is to look at the person in front of me and remember they're a person. Your street remembered that, eventually. Not all do." She stood, brushed her palms on her jeans. "I liked your volcano. It was messy. It was good." After she left, I thought about the lines I drew for myself. There are old lines, ones with coordinates and call signs, with names I don't say out loud anymore. There are new lines, bedtime and breakfast, chalk and tea, the space between breathing and speaking. I thought about the letter I had thrown away and the blue ribbon that once meant a path and then meant trespass and now sat in a drawer under rubber bands and a tape measure, just a piece of cloth again. A small truth settled heavy and kind in my chest. Fear is a tool for some, a habit for others. It can also be a teacher if you ask it the right questions. What are you saving me from? What are you making me miss? Who are you asking me to be? The answers are not always polite. They are still worth hearing. Paul came by with paint on his forearm and told me he and Hannah had decided to plant tomatoes against the back fence this year, even though the HOA had opinions about heights and cages. He grinned like a man who had found a new part of his spine. He said he told Caleb's replacement no when a survey came around. He said it felt like clearing his throat after a long winter. Karen started walking at dusk. Not patrolling, walking. She stopped to watch Naomi draw sometimes, hands folded, and I saw her face learn how to be gentle with something she wasn't holding. She came to Rebecca's porch one night with a pie recipe and asked for help because she was not good with flour. Rebecca laughed and made a mess and showed her anyway. They got sugar on the floor. They didn't wipe it up right away. Ants did not take the house that night. Deputy Price, Ethan, parked his cruiser at the end of the street sometimes and filled out paperwork because it was quiet there and he liked the way the oak tree made shade on his windshield. We waved. He waved back. Once he brought his sister, and she and Naomi drew stars on the pavement that looked like the night, but happier. As for me, I wrote a letter I did not send to anyone. I wrote it on yellow paper because that's what we had in the drawer. Dear Naomi, it began, and then I crossed that out because I was going to read it to her out loud someday. I wrote our rules, the kind that live in you if you write them down enough times. Breathe. Name what is happening without adding what you fear. Ask a question before you make a call. If you are scared, find someone who loves you and stand in their shadow for a minute. If you have power, make space. Do not hand your fear to someone who wants to sell it back to you. Do not carry anyone else's fear for long. Tell the truth. Say sorry when sorry is the medicine. Make volcanoes and chalk doors. Leave your door open when the air is kind. I folded the paper and put it in the same drawer as the blue ribbon. I put the ribbon on top. I wanted that order. I wanted the old code to sit under the new language, still there, but softened, carrying less weight. One last thing happened that made the picture click into focus. On a Sunday afternoon, after church bells somewhere far, after lawnmowers settled, after the pie had cooled, Mark stood in our yard and asked if I would speak at the next meeting. Not about Caleb. About us. About what we learned. I said yes. I stood in the clubhouse where the air had once smelled like metal and rain, and I told them simple things in easy words. I said, we will be measured by what we do when our fear is loud. I said, rules without kindness are brittle and break the wrong things. I said, stories can harm or heal, and it is our responsibility to feed the ones that keep our children safe. I said, we do not need to agree to be neighbors. We only need to refuse to make each other into shadows. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then someone coughed. Then someone laughed. Then someone clapped in that awkward way people do when they don't know where to put their hands. On the walk home, Naomi ran ahead and stood at our chalk door. She pretended to knock. She waited for an answer and then went in, smiling. I followed the slow steps of a man who understands something new about the ground under his feet. On Maple Lane, porch lights came on again. Small promises kept one by one. The street was still itself, full of quirks and rules, and people who sometimes forgot how to be their best selves. That would not change. But something in the center had shifted. The mirror Caleb tried to leave us had turned into a window. We could see each other through it. We could see ourselves, too, without flinching. I stood in the doorway and watched my daughter draw a little blue square on the corner of the chalk door, a window for her father, so he could see what was inside before he opened it. I thought about men who build their lives on straight lines and men who live on angles, and the way both can learn to bend. I thought about how easy it is to make a rule and how hard it is to let someone be a person. I thought about how every story is a choice, where to begin, where to end, where to keep a silence, where to break it with a laugh. We went inside. We left the actual door open to let the evening move through. I put the kettle on. Naomi told me she had renamed the boats, Hope, Pie, and Mercy. I told her I liked that one best. We ate the last of the lemon bars, even though they were too sweet. We let our house be the kind of place the dream had promised. We let the night be ordinary. That was how we ended. Not with a bang. With air moving through rooms. With a chalk door and a blue window and a pair of shoes by the mat. With a promise that wasn't loud and a resolve that was. With the simple, hard work of staying. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.